When Eminem was starting his rap career, he wasn't exactly what I would call welcomed into the culture. Hell, even to this day, there are certain people who believe that Eminem doesn't belong in hip hop. A couple of years ago, Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian, he told Vlad TV that Eminem was a guest in the house of hip hop. Throughout his career, he's fought against the stereotype of being a white rapper. Some claim that the only reason Eminem was successful was because he was a white guy doing black music. Back in December, some doofus named Dr. Umar Johnson, I didn't look into his credentials. I don't know if he's one of those doctors who are similar to Dr. Jill Biden, where they don't practice on actual patients. They just call themselves doctors because they paid for extra years of indoctrination at Woke U. Or if Umar Johnson is a real doctor. I don't know. Either way, according to Doc Johnson, Eminem can never be considered the greatest rapper of all time. Why? Because he lacks melanin. Yeah. Umar will never consider Eminem the greatest because he was born with white skin, which means, according to psychologists at Woke U, he was born with inherent mythical racism, even though that could be further from the truth. I'm starting to wonder if the same thing is going to happen to Caitlin Clark, or if the same thing's already starting to happen to Caitlin Clark. Outside of Larry Bird, there has never been a white dude who was the face of the NBA. Well, Casey, what about John Stockton? What about Luka Doncic? Yeah, neither one of those guys were the face of the league. To my knowledge, there has never been a white superstar in the WNBA. Hell, there's never been a superstar, period, in the WNBA. When the inevitable happens and Caitlin Clark is forced to apply for an entry-level job as a trash engineer in the WNBA dump, she's going to be the first superstar, first mainstream superstar to enter the league. There has been a lot of speculation as to how Caitlin Clark is going to be received. She is the antithesis of what most people perceive as the typical dump diver lifestyle. Most WNBA players wave the rainbow flag. Caitlin Clark waves the Christian flag. A sizable portion of WNBA players are attracted to the same gender that they share a locker room with. Caitlin Clark is attracted to what the media refers to as toxic masculinity. Fortunately, though, for Katie Rue Clark, she hasn't been forced to enter the dump yet. The debate surrounding Caitlin Clark now is whether or not she is the greatest player in the history of women's professional basketball. Well, Casey, Caitlin Clark plays college basketball. She hasn't gone pro yet. Yes, she has. Right now, she is playing at the professional level. Go watch a WNBA game and come back and tell me if that is professional basketball. Over the last week or so, Jay Williams from ESPN, he has been the leading voice when it comes to those who believe that Caitlin Clark isn't the GOAT in women's professional basketball. This all started last weekend when Jay Williams was on College Game Day or whatever the hell ESPN calls their college basketball pregame show. If their pregame show in college basketball is anything like their pregame show for the NBA, it should be called garbage. Jay Williams explained to the audience why he believes that Caitlin Clark isn't the GOAT in women's basketball. Watch for yourself.
I am unwilling, and maybe it's more the Kobe mentorship around me, to say that she is great yet. I think she is the most prolific scorer the game has ever seen. I hold great or the levels of immortality or the pantheon to when you win championships. Diana Taurasi, when you win 3 consecutive championships, 2-time National Player of the Year, it has to culminate with the chip. It has to. I mean, Breanna Stewart, if we're talking about GOAT legends of the game, she's won 4 chips.
When we talked about this last weekend, I thought Jay Williams was confusing greatness with being iconic. I mean, there is a difference. There's a lot of great players. Some have even won championships, but there are very, very few icons. Scottie Pippen won 6 rings with the Bulls. Does anyone think Scottie Pippen is iconic? Charles Barkley has the same number of rings as I have. 1, the wedding ring on his finger. I think most people would consider Charles Barkley to be an icon in basketball. Now, some of that has to do with his successful career in the mainstream media, but it doesn't really matter how you get there. Ken Shamrock never won a title in the UFC. Before they had weight divisions, I think Ken Shamrock won one of those early tournaments and they called him a champion. If I remember correctly, the belt only lasted for 2 or 3 months, but Ken Shamrock never won a title once the UFC was regulated and official, the UFC that we know today. Ken Shamrock is still an icon in the UFC. You're either an icon or you're not. I happen to disagree with Jay Williams. Whether you want to call her the GOAT or an icon, when it comes to women's college basketball, Caitlin Clark is both. Caitlin Clark stands alone on top of the mountain, with everyone else trying to climb a stepless ladder below her. Why is Caitlin Clark iconic? Why is Caitlin Clark the only icon in women's college basketball? Because she has accomplished something that thousands and thousands of players before her have never been able to accomplish. Caitlin Clark has made women's college basketball mainstream. Watch what happens in the next couple of years when she retires from the professional level and she's forced to enter the dump. Ratings for women's college basketball will return to the low 6 figures. Last weekend, I thought Jay Williams was confusing greatness with being iconic. He was talking about her lack of championships. He was talking about her ringless fingers. I just feel like Caitlin Clark is one of those rare instances where championships aren't required to be considered iconic. I guess to his credit, Jay Williams is standing by what he said, even after all the backlash that he received. Last night, ESPN was broadcasting the game between Kentucky and LSU. As usual, ESPN was doing what they do best. The broadcast crew calling the game, they were talking about everything else except the actual game. If I was a fan of Kentucky or LSU, I would have been aggravated last night, trying to watch my team play, and this doofus broadcast crew is talking about Caitlin Clark. They're talking about a female professional basketball player during a minor league game of men's basketball. During the broadcast, Jay Williams, he doubled down on his original statement that Caitlin Clark is not the greatest player in the history of women's basketball. Now, I blanked out the visual for copyright reasons because they were talking about this during the actual game, but watch it for yourself.
You got to win championships to be GOATs. So when people want to don her as the greatest of all, I'm like, let's slow down. I've seen Donna Taurasi. I've seen Breonna Stewart. And you can sit there and tell me all day long, well, she's played with other great players. Okay, great. Championships. That's how we measure greatness overall.
Okay, so we've already established that I disagree with Jay Williams, but here is where I don't disagree with him. If you were to search Twitter, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of comments accusing Jay Williams of being a racist. They're accusing Jay Williams of hating Caitlin Clark. In the past, I have called out Jay Williams for injecting race into a conversation that has absolutely nothing to do with race. Remember last year when Angel Reese was being criticized for taunting Caitlin Clark in the national championship game? Following day, Jay Williams goes on that dump called ESPN Radio, and he claims that Angel Reese was being treated differently because of her race. All these old white men, they are tarnishing my queen! This is racist! So it's not like I'm some defender of Jay Williams. At the same time, I don't think his comments about Caitlin Clark have anything to do with her race. I don't agree with him. I think he is looking solely at championships instead of looking at the bigger picture, but I don't think he is refusing to call her great because she's a white girl. I mean, the two players that Jay Williams compared Caitlin Clark to, Diana Taurasi and Bree Stewart, they're both white girls too. What he's basically saying, if Caitlin Clark wants to be considered the greatest of all time, she has to eclipse those two players. Last night, Jay Williams got on Twitter to address the people accusing him of mythical racism, or would it be called reverse racism? Whatever it was, Jay Williams addressed it last night. Watch for yourself.
Caitlin Clark is cool as hell. She's the homie. Please stop with all this race baiting shit. Please. Ain't nobody out here trying to do that. It's just hoopers. Now, the comment of great, they're both great. Okay? We're talking about levels of greatness and immortality. And in the pantheon of greatness, there are levels to great. With chips, that's how I think about it. You think about it differently? Fine. But the only thing I'm going to say is to all you keyboard courageous people that want to call me a bum or try to make fun of my career, none of y'all could hold me. None of y'all. 90% of y'all didn't even pick up a basketball.
I 100% agree with Jay Williams. Stop with the race baiting shit. I agree 100%. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I am tired of the race baiting. I'm tired of criticisms being twisted into cases of mythical racism. But here's the thing. Jay Williams is addressing people on social media. Most of these people have small, minimal followings. If he's truly tired of race baiting, how come he's not willing to call out Stephen A. Smith? Stephen A. Smith is known to play the race card. Black coach is passed over in the NFL. Stephen A. pulls the race card. Hell, just last month, when Cliff Kingsbury was hired by the lieutenants disguised as commanders in Washington, D.C., Stephen A. claimed it was a case of white privilege. Every day, Jay Williams is surrounded by people at the worldwide leader in woke who are known for their proficient skills in race baiting. I don't see the problem, I guess, with him calling out people on social media. However, I'm just wondering how come Jay Williams isn't willing to do the same thing with his colleagues at ESPN? It's going to be fascinating to see how the career of Caitlin Clark unfolds. There is going to be an unbelievable amount of pressure on Caitlin Clark to save the WNBA dump. Is she capable of doing that? Maybe, I don't know. I think the bigger question is going to be, will she be allowed to save the WNBA? Remember a couple of weeks ago when Cheryl Swoops went on some podcast and fabricated a bunch of shit just to tarnish Caitlin Clark? I don't think Cheryl Swoops is the only one that has that mentality. Going into the WNBA, it is going to be an uphill battle for Caitlin Clark. Will the mainstream media eventually turn on her? If she starts mentioning her religion, will it piss off parishioners at Woke United Methodist? I mean, we already know how the mainstream media feels about Christianity. Last month, NBC uploaded their post-game interview with CJ Stroud to social media and completely edited out the portion where CJ Stroud thanked Jesus Christ. Will Caitlin Clark be received by WNBA players, or will there be overwhelming feelings of resentment and jealousy? A rookie coming into the league who is already a bigger superstar than every other dump diver in the dump. We'll see what happens. But as far as Jay Williams is concerned, I don't think race has anything to do with his criticism of Caitlin Clark. I just wish Jay Williams had this same energy with his race-baiting colleagues as he does with the people on social media. But give me your thoughts on this. Do you think Jay Williams' criticism of Caitlin Clark has anything to do with race? Is this a case of reverse racism? I mean, I don't think so, but maybe you disagree. I think Caitlin Clark is the only icon in women's college basketball. I know Gino and Dawn Staley are legendary coaches, but Caitlin Clark is the only one, player or coach, that has lifted women's basketball into the mainstream conversation. Is she the only icon, or do you think she's got to win a title to earn that status? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.